Yeah.
Guys get to see me on there. All right. Since we're talking about all these names of players, whether it's Kevin Durant, LeBron James, all these different names, there was an interesting article that you saw first on The Ringer from Howard Beck, a great
What up, Beck?
longtime NBA writer. He's been fantastic for many, many years. And he had something about, hey, it's the All-Star break and kind of boring and some rumors and all of that. So he got some info from some executives around the league kind of looking ahead to the offseason. And one of the things that we talk about in the chat a lot, and I'm sure in the Discord, is who can the Sixers add all the time?
It's a question that we talk about basically every day.
Yeah. So with it, Howard Beck brought up some stuff about the offseason, some different names, including LeBron James, who might be available that maybe you're not even thinking about being available during the summer. And, of course, bringing up the Sixers with the big-time cap space that they'll have available to them, close to, $60 million that they could have. And there were some names in there, Kyle.
There are quite a few.
There were some names in there. So you want to start it off with some of the names?
I could go down in just, written order. So Trae Young was thrown out there. Trae Young was not only thrown out there as a potential guy who gets traded, but a guy who actually might go the other way with the Lakers and go to play with LeBron in LA. So that was an interesting one. This one is one of the worst kept secrets in the league, but Donovan Mitchell. Cleveland has exceeded expectations this year based on who's been available, who's been healthy.
Yes.
But they got punched in the mouth by the Knicks in round 1 last year. And it's already basically, I won't say it's known, but everyone in the league feels Mitchell is out of there as soon as his contract is up. And I think that'll be sooner than later if they were to lose early this year. If Cleveland loses in the first round, you're going to hold on to him through the end of his contract to have no real chance to win a title? Probably not.
My question with him is where? It was always the Knicks. That's what we always heard. But
there's been a lot of smoke connecting him to your cousin in Brooklyn, and I've always kind of looked at that as that's a good way to kind of just get stuck in exactly where Cleveland is, which is to say that's a team in need of more. I like Mitchell. I love McHale. I still think that that's a team that would struggle to make real noise in the East, but it's either here nor there because we'll see. That's a year off.
So that's Donovan
Mitchell. Howard Beck says, looking at Boston, and this has been one you've continued to hear Drew Holiday's name come up as a free agent target for other teams in the offseason for this reason. Boston is going to have a gigantic payroll after this year. And some of that is because of Jaylen Brown's Supermax. Could Jaylen Brown potentially get moved? And if he does, who's actually interested in him at that type of price that he's got? But if they don't move him, is Drew Holiday gettable? Is he a free agent that you could go after? And that's somebody that makes sense in Philly still, maybe not at a high price, but certainly someone who fits. And then you just keep going on and on down the line. There's Kevin Durant. If the Suns thing doesn't work out, if Bradley Beal, who, by the way, got pulled from another game with a hamstring issue the other night, if he's never healthy, maybe he says, fuck this, I'm out. Maybe the Pelicans say, hey, we got to split up Zion and Brandon Ingram, who I know, Devon, you were saying Ingram. You're an Ingram guy in some way. There's the Paul George thing, which that's probably a conversation all on its own from a Sixers perspective, because I think if you're looking at just free agents, potential free agents, circle him. And then there's the Wolves. And then it's just nobody really knows what's going to happen in June and July this year in the NBA. But the gist of Howard's article, and we've brought this up many times, is that there's an expectation that with the new CBA rules that punish teams for being second apron teams, there's going to be a ton of movement and a lot of scrambling. And that's part of the Sixers calculus to hold that cap space, to maintain flexibility so that if and when that happens, they're ready to pounce.
And it's like you look at a team like Boston, who's in as good of a roster right now as anyone in the league, the best roster in the league, 1 through 6. They've got 6 guys you would love to have on the Sixers right now. And eventually they're not going to be able, Derek White's not going to be making $17 million a year forever. When you have a top 2 of Tatum and Brown going into this new CBA with a second apron, it's going to be real tough to keep that team together. And I was talking to an executive the other day, And he basically just said, like, I think what Daryl's doing is real smart, where Daryl would rather be ready to pounce if a great opportunity becomes available, rather than commit himself to marginal upgrades. And I think that's largely what Daryl did. And it frustrates fans for two reasons. One, that you're not going to have more reinforcements for this stretch run. But two, because you just don't know. And Kyle just went over a list of people who could become available. Very few of them we know will become available. And that's frustrating and scary and terrifying. And when you're talking about Joel Embiid and how long, you don't know how long the window is going to be open. And this is a year, at least before the injury, where you thought you had a great chance. That's not what anyone wants to hear. But I agree with Kyle's overall sentiment. I think there's going to be a lot of activity here over the next 9 to 12 months. It's just unpredictable activity. And you have to sort of wrap your mind around that and become comfortable with that unpredictability.
And some of the point that Howard was making, which I think is important to note, is that in season, especially with the play-in tournament, like the teams that have stars that are hovering around there, that play for franchises, owners that are like, hey, just get us in and get us that 8 seed playoff revenue, that 7 seed playoff revenue, and that's fine. Like we'll sell tickets and we'll make money, and I don't really care about really gunning for a title and spending what it takes for a title. But then you get to the off season and everyone kind of sobers up and says, wow, we're really going to pay, just name a player. We're going to pay Trae Young all this money and go, I don't know, 39 and 43 or whatever it is. Like,
Right.
That's when people start to sit down and say, well, maybe we should change something. In the middle of the season, it's hard. You don't want to uproot things, especially this season where the draft is generally considered weak, that it's a role player draft and not a star player draft. And so teams are not super interested in selling off ready-made talent for, frankly, talent that's not going to help them this year and potentially in the future. So that's a big one, and that's a reason that I think things have been slowed down a little bit, but could pick up quite a bit on draft night in June and certainly into July.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. But those names are interesting already.
We all silly like the mayor.